Greetings, I'm Dr. William Lanier, Editor-in-Chief of Mayo Clinic Proceedings, and I'm joined today by Dr. Vincent Rajkumar, Professor of Oncology here at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. Dr. Rajkumar has written an editorial for the June 2016 issue of Mayo Clinic Proceedings that relates to how the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, approves oncology drugs, and his editorial discusses a submission by Drs. Kim and Prasad on how the U.S. FDA is now using surrogate endpoints to approve cancer drug and the implications that has for throughput of these drug approvals and the quality of care provided patients. So Dr. Rajkumar, would you mind telling us a little bit about the Kim and Prasad article that your editorial introduces?
Sure. First of all, thanks very much for asking me to write this editorial. The article by Kim and Prasad relates to the use of surrogate endpoints by the FDA to approve new drugs in oncology. They examined 55 drug approvals that occurred between 2009 and 2014. And they found that in only 30 instances was there an analysis that showed that the surrogate endpoint used to approve a new drug had previously been validated in a published manner. And in many of these cases, the type of validation done was not of high quality, and many instances that the association between the surrogate endpoint used and what's clinical benefit, overall survival or quality of life was very limited or weak.
So if a non-oncologist was examining this literature and they were thinking about any other life-threatening condition, it would seem that the gold standards for whether a drug was approved or not long-term would be, is it efficacious, is it safe, and does it improve outcomes such as longevity or quality of life during that longevity? Is this a standard that's being used for the approval of cancer drugs, and if not, why not?
So, to examine this, one has to really look at how the FDA approves drugs. Since 1938, the FDA has been charged by law to approve drugs only if they are safe. Since 1962, after the Kefauver-Harris Amendment, the FDA also requires proof of efficacy before approving a drug. So in order to get a drug approved in the United States, the drug has to show clinical benefit as well as be safe. And clinical benefit is, there's only two real tangible measures of that. One is overall survival, which is, does the drug treatment make the patient live longer? Or secondly, improvement in a validated patient-reported outcome. If you move to life-threatening diseases like cancer, sometimes the use of strict clinical benefit endpoints, overall survival or patient-reported quality of life, would mean delaying the approval of new drugs by many years, and patients could die waiting for a drug to be approved because survival endpoints can take a very long time to prove. So the FDA in life-threatening diseases like cancer allows the use of surrogate endpoints such as response rate, has the tumor shrunk, or progression-free survival, which is how long did it take for the tumor to grow back up again or relapse, to approve a new drug. The use of these surrogate endpoints, the benefit is that the drugs can come in sooner on the market, patients can get valuable new drugs that can potentially prolong life earlier. The risks are that the drug may not actually be useful or may have side effects that don't become apparent for many years.
So if a drug enters the marketplace, is the promise of putting something out there that might help trumping the possibility that these drugs may later be shown to not be as good as they actually are, or they're so expensive they can't be maintained in the marketplace?
Well, this is a very, very important question. The FDA does have two different ways it approves a drug. One is called accelerated approval, where a surrogate endpoint may be used to approve a drug, sometimes based on an uncontrolled trial. And in that case, the manufacturer has to have a more formal randomized trial that is underway or well planned, and that has to show benefit eventually. If not, that the accelerated approval will be withdrawn. The other form of approval is called regular approval, and for that the FDA does require companies to show proof of clinical benefit or use a validated surrogate endpoint.
Given these evolving standards for approving cancer drugs, can one conclude that the standards are deteriorating with time?
I think the FDA has achieved the perfect balance at this point between the need for speed so that new promising drugs can enter the market rapidly and provide benefit to patients, and the need for safety, which means that useless or harmful drugs are not entering the market. They currently approve new drugs which have been proven to provide clinical benefit, or they approve drugs based on validated surrogate endpoints. The article by Dr. Kim and Prasad points out that a formal analysis of a association between the surrogate endpoint and survival has not been demonstrated formally in a large proportion of the approvals. However, what could be happening behind the scenes is that the FDA does its own analysis, or the manufacturer has provided such analysis to the FDA with the new drug application, or such an analysis has been done and data are available but has just not been formally published. I do think that the standards should not be relaxed further. Many proponents of the precision medicine era would like to see new drugs approved based on whether a drug hits the target or based on very small studies using surrogate endpoints, since these are difficult trials to run. But I think doing so would really compromise the safety mission. You raised a point about cost. The FDA is prevented from looking at cost or economics in terms of approval of drugs. They just have to look at whether the drug's proven to have benefit and safety. The cost is a concern because if we allow a very relaxed standard and allow many new drugs to come on the market, one of the problems is that every new cancer drug is priced at over $100,000 a year, and you will potentially have drugs that provide promise, but we really don't know whether they are efficacious entering the market early and are priced very high.
How does one determine if the cost of a drug is appropriate or not?
This is a very, very important question, Bill. In other countries, there's really two steps. One is, has the drug shown itself to be safe and effective? And then there is a next step where an agency looks at whether the price proposed by the manufacturer is reasonable considering the benefit it provides. Cost in the US is usually 2-3 times more for cancer drugs than other countries. And this is because once the drug's approved, the price is really completely up to the manufacturer and nobody has any control over that.
In your opinion, what unique is added by the Kim and Prasad article that was not previously in the literature?
I think they make a very important point, that is that surrogate endpoints don't necessarily mean that patients have been helped. So they highlight the fact that many times there's really no good data to show that the surrogate endpoint does what it's supposed to do. I think many of the points that they raise can be addressed by one, stricter post-marketing surveillance and withdrawal of drugs in a more rapid manner. Number two, by ensuring that when the surrogate endpoint has not been fully validated, that the type of approval given is more accelerated approval rather than a regular approval. Number three, if an accelerated approval is given, that we really hold the manufacturer responsible to conduct the formal randomized trial in a timely manner, and these could solve the problem.
So we didn't get into the marketplace.
Because this article is on different, but we just touch on the cost, and we said, like, honestly, one of the problems we have is that the FDA is prevented by law from looking at the costs. The FDA cannot pass judgment on whether it thinks that 1 month is worth it or not, particularly given the cost. So they are by law having to answer only two questions. Is the drug safe? Is it effective? They can't look at too much at magnitude, and they cannot look at all at what the cost will be.
Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar.
Thanks so much for having me, Bill.
We hope you found this presentation from the content of Mayo Clinic Proceedings valuable. Our journal's mission is to promote the best interests of patients by advancing the knowledge and professionalism of the physician community. If you are interested in more information about us, our homepage is www.mayoclinicproceedings.org. There you will find access information for our social media content, such as additional videos on our YouTube channel or journal updates on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter. More information about healthcare at Mayo Clinic is available at www.mayoclinic.org. This video content is copyrighted by Mayo Foundation for Medical Education and Research.